Good day to all. Last week, Israel witnessed violent attacks against Christians in Jerusalem. It was the second violent attack in as many months. The violence against Christians in Jerusalem is unprecedented in modern times, although violence were there even from the first century on.
Inside the King of Kings congregation, some 800 people recently attended 2 concerts of Hebrew worship songs. But outside, something else was going on.
So as the worshipers were trying to come,
protesters verbally and physically attacked those trying to attend the concert, sponsored by the Messianic Jewish Alliance of Israel.
Several people that got harmed, they got accosted. We were being told of several people who got hurt. They would get in their way. They would physically put their hands on them, put their body on them.
While Holland commended police for bringing order, he felt more could have been done to prevent the situation.
We want to say thank you to the police. They did such a good job. They were so brave and courageous.
One of Jerusalem's deputy mayors, Aryeh King, stood behind and supported the protesters, which included many teenagers and young men. Others cheered them on from above.
Testing a music concert.
Holland emphasized that there was no intent to evangelize. He says what happened exposed people's hearts.
Worshippers were coming for one heart of love for God, love for one another, and the protesters had a different heart motive, and they didn't seem to care if someone was a man, a woman, a grown person, a child, an elderly person.
The musical evening has been an event for years. Holland says he hopes next time they can come up with a way to make it just that. Israelis may be sensitive to the idea of missionary activity. Shapiro believes those who would protest a Christian event are relatively few. She also feels Israelis should turn their energies elsewhere.
I mean, this is still a democratic country, and that includes the democratic right to protest, so long as it doesn't harm law and order.
On the other hand, she's concerned about the growing dispute. While she says the group is small, Hassan Nahum is still concerned about the violence against Christians.
I would like to think that we do our utmost to protect all minorities.
This modern-day new wave of violence against Christians in Jerusalem by the fringe groups of Judaic faith is actually unfathomable, because these are sister religions of the same Abrahamic faith and traditions, although existing as 2 separate religions, as subjects of the same God. Therefore, such violence cannot be understood just because of the differences in the structure, activities, and the forms of religious relationship with the same God between the 2 religions. It can only be understood through their individual sense of religious identity that causes them to act against each other. It is that sense of identity, which is spilling over to identity politics, that is the cause of such violence in Jerusalem. Such identity politics and political bias that it creates were explicitly expressed by the support of such violence by the local city administration officials in Jerusalem. The Christians in Jerusalem are mostly Palestinians, numbering anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000. This violence shows the weight of the political bias taking over the sisterhood of both religions, rendering their religious faith worthless to serve humanity among them. In January, an extremist Jewish mob hurled chairs and damaged property in violent scenes at an Armenian-owned restaurant by Newgate in the Old City. There were cries of death to Arabs and death to Christians. In February, a Jewish American tourist vandalized a statue of Jesus at the Church of the Flagellation. Police say tombstones were damaged in an act of intentional vandalism. The Greek Orthodox Patriarch Theophilos III warned of the unprecedented attacks on Christian presence by radical Israeli groups. At the start of the year, on Mount Zion, where many Christians believe the Last Supper took place, two ultra-Orthodox teenagers were caught on security cameras desecrating graves in the Anglican cemetery. Crosses and headstones were smashed, as reported by BBC News. In the old city's Armenian quarter, an increase in racist abuse, hate-filled graffiti, and intimidation by Jewish religious nationalists were reported. Bishop William Samali of the Latin Patriarchate stated that it's happening because there is hatred in fanaticism and radicalization of a part of the Israeli society, although it is a minority of people. There were dozens of violent attacks like these within the last 3 months. These are no longer isolated acts in modern times. The old city is important to all the monotheistic religions, which is more than half of humanity. The last century, Jerusalem's Christian population has shrunk to less than 2%. Israeli police forces say that they are working diligently to maintain security, order, and freedom of worship for members of all religions and denominations. Many Christians, though, feel that the growing hostility towards them is meant to push them out. Although violence is orchestrated by fringe fractions of religions, the sentiments naturally become widespread if such violence is allowed to continue. Adding fuel to the fire is the proliferation of Christians into modern-day Judaism, which is an activity based on religious identity, basically, because such proliferation is otherwise not warranted, since Christianity is an extension of the covenantal relationship of Judaic faith into those who are labeled as Gentiles. It's like an individual sitting on the branch of a tree, cutting off the tree itself above the branch to only allow the branch to grow. That's a religious identity, proliferating, obscuring their common faith. The nation of Israel is a secular democratic nation, with over 60% of the population being secular. The current Israeli government, however, includes also nationalists, such as Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who advocates policies showing intolerance for those who do not share their religion, although it is not a strategy of the new government, by large, to be hostile to other religions. This is what happens when identity politics is fed by religious identity, even in a democratic republic such as Israel, with freedom of religion, which in turn expunges the democratic values of individual freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and mutual dignity and respect. That is thrown out the window, which is also against the proclaimed teachings of these religions. It's like dark clouds gathered in the sky, obscuring the sunlight. While religious freedom is a democratic value, religious identity and identity politics, as well as occasional identities, are rather primitive behaviors that are evolved, acting against individual human rights, that need to be shed in modern times, because it is not suitable for learned modern societies in the 21st century and beyond. We are capable of doing better with modern values as articulated by the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights going forward in the 21st century and beyond.